On the coldest morning of the year, just as the sun struggled to rise behind the gray clouds, a single dad named Ethan Walker pushed open the door of the tiny corner cafe where he stopped every day before work. He was exhausted, juggling two part-time jobs and raising his little daughter alone. But that morning, something froze him in place. Sitting at the table near the window was a young woman, soaked from the rain, shivering, clutching her stomach as if hunger had carved a hollow space inside her. She looked like someone who had been fighting battles no one could see and losing. And in that instant, Ethan knew without understanding why that he couldn't walk past her. Something in her broken expression felt like a mirror of the hardest nights of his own life. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that strangers can become miracles in each other's lives, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Ethan approached her gently, offering a simple plate of toast, the same breakfast he always bought for himself because it was cheap, warm, and reliable. The woman looked at him with wide, fearful eyes at first, then confusion, then a trembling gratitude that made Ethan's chest tighten. Her name, she said softly, was Clara Hayes. She spoke in a voice wrapped in weakness, but polite, as if apologizing for even existing. She didn't tell him why she was soaked, or why she looked like she hadn't eaten in days, or why her hands shook when she held the bread. She only whispered, "Thank you," as though the words themselves hurt to speak. From that day on, Ethan began seeing her every morning, always at the same table by the window, always cold, always quiet, always looking out the wet glass as though expecting someone who never arrived. And every morning, Ethan brought an extra sandwich, pretending he had mistakenly ordered too much. Clara never asked for help, but she never refused it either. She ate with the desperation of someone who had gone far too long pretending she didn't need saving. Ethan didn't have much, barely enough for himself and his young daughter Lily. But kindness cost nothing, and for him, helping Clara felt more natural than ignoring her suffering. Over the next weeks, he noticed things. How she often wore the same clothes. How she flinched at sudden noises. How she avoided eye contact with anyone else. Sometimes she looked like she had cried all night. Sometimes she had new bruises she tried to hide. And always she sat in that same chair as though it was the only safe place she knew that he never pried. He didn't want to scare her away. But he made sure she ate, that she warmed her hands around a cup of tea, that she left the cafe with at least a little strength. And though he didn't know her story, he knew pain when he saw it. He had lived through abandonment, through nights when Lily cried from hunger because his paycheck was late, through moments when the world felt too heavy for one pair of shoulders point. One morning as rain hammered the windows, Clara looked worse than ever. Her eyes were swollen, her breathing shaky, her fingers trembling around the cup Ethan had placed in them. She whispered that she didn't deserve kindness. Ethan simply told her everyone deserved at least one person who cared. She didn't reply, but she cried silently, and he pretended not to see. Days passed, then weeks, and the strange routine became a quiet bond. Two broken lives meeting in the same corner of the world, finding warmth in small acts of compassion. And then one morning, Clara didn't show up. Ethan waited longer than usual, checking the door every few seconds, worry twisting his stomach. She didn't come the next day either, or the one after that. He feared something terrible had happened. 3 days later. Just when he had nearly convinced himself she wouldn't return, the cafe door burst open in a way that made every head turn. 4 large men in suits entered first, their stern faces scanning the room like bodyguards. Behind them walked 2 sharply dressed lawyers carrying heavy files. And between them, stepping nervously but with clean clothes, brushed hair, and a glow of fragile strength, was Clara. She looked like herself, but a version finally able to breathe. The lawyers approached Ethan directly, and everyone in the cafe fell silent. Clara stood behind them, tears filling her eyes as though seeing him again hurt in the best possible way. The lead lawyer introduced himself and explained that Clara had been missing for months. She was the daughter of a powerful businesswoman who had been searching for her endlessly. Clara had escaped an abusive fiancé who controlled her money, movement, and life. She had lived in hiding, terrified, starving, ashamed to ask for help until she met a stranger who treated her like a human being. The lawyer said Clara had told them everything. Every morning he fed her. Every small act of compassion he gave without expecting anything in return. Every moment he protected her dignity simply by being kind. They said her family wanted to thank him personally. But Clara stepped forward before they could continue. She told Ethan in a trembling voice that he had saved her life. That his kindness had reminded her she was worth more than the pain she had endured. That every morning she only had strength to keep living because she knew he would be there asking for nothing but making her feel seen. And that her mother, upon hearing everything, wanted to do something for the man who had protected her daughter when no one else had found her. Ethan was stunned. He had never imagined Clara had a life filled with wealth, power, or lawyers and bodyguards. To him, she had been just a woman who needed help. Nothing more, nothing less. But the lawyers insisted. Clara insisted. They said her family wanted to pay for Lily's schooling, cover Ethan's debts, move him into safer housing. Ethan refused at first, overwhelmed, but Clara quietly placed a hand over his and told him that sometimes accepting help was also an act of courage. Their worlds were different, but gratitude didn't care about social status. Clara's family eventually became a silent guardian for Ethan and his daughter, not because he asked, but because kindness had a way of multiplying. And Ethan, who had once felt like life was slowly drowning him, suddenly found room to breathe. He didn't feel alone anymore. Clara, slowly healing, visited the cafe, often without the fear that used to live in her eyes. She became a friend to Lily, a calming presence in their humble home and a reminder that even the smallest kindness can alter the course of someone's entire world. That if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more real emotional stories to life. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's place?